Welcome to a brand new episode of the Monster Jam Teardown. This week, we're discussing Monster Jam's Triple Threat Series East from the 2020 season. Being the only championship to have finished all of its stops, it was full of competitive action from top to bottom. Welcome to the Monster Jam Teardown. Welcome, Monster Jam fans, to another episode of the Monster Jam Teardown. Today, we are discussing Monster Jam Triple Threat Series East. Now, before we introduce our analyst, we want to give a quick look back at our interview with Matt Isbill and see what he thought of this year's Triple Threat Series East competition.
Something about Tyler Meninga, when I used to see him out there on the track, he doesn't get in his head. The only time I've ever seen him get in his head, in my honest opinion, was Monster Jam World Finals, is when he would get in his own head. Otherwise, Tyler would just show up and say, I'm going to win this thing. And that's what he does. He would sit there and tell me, Matt, I'm going to go in and I am going to win this thing. And it was actually funny because he'd go in there thinking, I just got this in the bag. And it'd be funny watching these other athletes sit there and be like, wanting to take down Tyler so bad. So it wasn't Tyler reevaluating. It was the other athletes reevaluating themselves because they knew they had the defending champion coming in and they had to take him down. So it was really great watching these other athletes like Blake and Kayla, Bernard Light and all them wanting to take down Tyler Meninga. It was actually really fun to watch.
So there we have the opinions from Isbill on what went down this season. Now we'll bring in our Monster Jam Teardown analysts. We have Joshua Tavares, Danny McGinley, and Wayne Chiaki joining me. And guys, what a season on Triple Threat Series East. Josh, we'll start with you. We'll end with Wayne. What did you think of the overall competition this season on the Triple Threat Series East?
Yeah, it was a tour filled with a lot of awesome moments. It was from the stacks from the top to bottom. Honestly couldn't have been happier with how the tour, really panned out in the end because, there were so many moments that just from truck racing to ATVs and speedsters. Everything was just very, competitive from there.
Yeah, Triple Threat East was definitely one of the better Triple Threat tours of the last couple of years. It just seemed like every weekend, all 8 of the athletes were putting everything on the line. And, I got to see about 8 or 9 events from their tour, and every show was incredible. And, it was just insane to see how every week they stay consistently really good.
This was the tour we've been looking at last year on the podcast we had. And it was the most anticipated tour of the year, I believe. One of the most competitive. We had so many great athletes on that tour. And I remember it being such a great year for all the fans that were able to get out to a show. And I really enjoyed all the action we saw last year.
Let's get right to the final point standings. Of course, the only Monster Jam tour this season that actually finished every stop on the points championship. And Tyler Meninga in Gravedigger sat on top of the rest when he won the series championship with 1,116 points. Blake Granger in second, Kayla Blood third, Armando Castro fourth, Joe Yuri in fifth, Bernard Light in sixth, Aaron Basil in seventh, and Jack Brown in eighth. Now, guys, we're going to go over every athlete on this tour. Let's start with Tyler Meninga. And, there's not really much else to say about Tyler Meninga. Now a 4-time Triple Threat Series champion, all in a row. And he has only missed out on one series championship, and that was his first one in 2016. Josh, this guy has been on such a roll.
Yeah, ever since he set foot behind the wheel of Gravedigger, Tyler's been a different breed, as us would say, But Tyler's just from the moment that he really even began driving in Monster Jam, dude, he's caught, the eyes of a lot of people. Representing Blue Thunder was something different that, we had to get used to because obviously since the passing of Dalton, we had to get over that sadly. And, Tyler, fitting the wheel behind Blue Thunder was something different. And, it brought us, something new to the table. He was bringing stoppies into the, the mix as well as Cody. But, Tyler really pushed it to the envelope and really progressed how, the stoppies and moonwalk game really was now in Monster Jam. And with what he had done in Gravedigger this year, 4 years in a row, can't say anything less.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Meninga, like, from the beginning of his career was extremely impressive. Right when he started from Blue Thunder, he was, everyone was watching him every weekend, and he was, going as big as any of the veterans that were out there. And this year was no different. It seemed like just about every event, every weekend, he was doing some different move, from multiple different saves in Allentown to, incredible mini flips and everything. And, it was just every single weekend with Tyler, which is why he ended up winning this tour.
Man, Tyler's been such an improved athlete throughout the years. He was one of the most well-known up-and-coming athletes, and I had the pleasure of first seeing him 2018 Amalie Arena. A few of you were there. Josh, both of you, I think, were. But it was an incredible show, and ever since then, I was a Tyler fan. He has done an incredible job in Gravedigger. He's been very innovative in the Arena series. We've seen him do incredible moves like a bicycle and somehow walking it out for more than like 5 or 10 seconds, which is almost impossible to be heard of in an arena. So he's just an incredible talent, and he's really been doing good, especially this year.
Now, I think we really saw Tyler Meninga kind of excel when they put that 8-pack backflip ramp on his tour. Now, they introduced it last year in 2019 on Triple Threat Series West. Tyler got accompanied with it. Him and Colton were really the main two hitting that ramp every weekend. Now, this year, they introduced it into all of the Triple Threat Series shows, and Tyler Meninga was just innovating so much on that 8-pack backflip. I mean, you could think back to, I believe it was in Allentown, where he, did the backflip into a reverse sidewall save. I mean, that's just stuff we've never seen before in a Monster Jam truck.
Yeah, it's really cool what Monster Jam has done, bringing the mini flip into not only just the Triple Threat East Tour, but all tours across the board. It was definitely something unique, and it was definitely a curveball for most of the drivers, in my opinion, because not only do they have to worry about putting on a show for the fans, but they also have the mini flip aspect that they can also elevate into, giving them a higher score in the freestyle competition, or even do some cool moves off of intuitive skills. So seeing what Tyler done throughout the year with the mini flip is definitely something cool, and I'm waiting to see what he can even do then with some new moves off of it.
Yeah, the mini flip was definitely a huge addition to the triple threat tours, and Tyler always made sure that he hit it whenever he could, and just about it seemed like every time he hit it, he ended up going to some big save, like you were saying, Josh. In Allentown, he had that reverse save. In Birmingham, I believe he had a rollover into a save right after that, right after he did a backflip. And, I think that really helped him because, when you're a fan judging, like you see someone do a backflip in a very small space like that, like you're pretty wowed by that. Like it's something that you weren't expecting from, a ramp, like even like the ramp, it just doesn't seem like, you could get something that wild out of that. And I think Tyler really like exclamated on that.
The 8-pack and Monster Jam in arenas, like in my personal opinion, is the most awesomest, the best stunt you can possibly do in an arena for fans who come to a show for the first time in a closed space. They don't expect to see a backflip or what we call a mini flip. And when you do that as a driver, it feels amazing probably when you complete that because you're doing a full 360 backflip in a 12,000-pound machine in a closed arena that is usually meant for basketball or some other concert, or it's not meant for Monster Jam. And what they've done from going from crushing cars in the 80s and 90s to now being able to do backflips in the arena series is just incredible. And Tyler is one who definitely takes advantage of that stunt. He's done it so many times this year, and it really wows the fans, gives that wow moment, and shows everybody what they want to see and what they don't expect. It's unexpected.
Now moving on to one of Tyler Meninga's main rivals on Triple Threat Series East this season, Blake Granger in Max D, coming right off of his ATV Racing World Championship at Monster Jam World Finals 20. I mean, guys, Blake was on fire this season. He led the points tour for a little bit in the middle of it, but ultimately Tyler Meninga was able to get over top of him. But just what a season for Blake Granger, another athlete that was breaking out so many new moves this season.
Yeah, Blake is always one to look out for as seasons progress. He's one that I've always, had an eye on, since he began driving in Monster Jam. Blake and I have had a cool little relationship, that I've more, gotten through to know him more throughout the years, obviously, and seeing what he has done in Max D is definitely something, very unique and different. Competing against Tyler, I think, really upped his game because not only does he have to face a past champion in the Triple Threat Tour series, he has to really change how he approaches everything because he's competing with his wife as well. So you have many different factors playing into there. So you're gonna have to change up your game plan very quickly and stay on top as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, Blake had such a great season this season, and when he was behind the wheel before, he was doing just as well, and everyone knew right when he began driving. I believe his first truck that he drove was actually Monster Dalmatian and for Cynthia back on Triple Threat West, and even then he was still putting on great runs and doing great in all the competitions. And on ATVs he's like dominating every single event that happens during the weekends, which is where he got a lot of those points, I feel, because he was able to grab those 8 points just about every time he had the chance to. And, like you were saying, with going up against Tyler Meninga, that I feel like that definitely made him want to go harder when he was out on the floor, just because he knew that whether Tyler was going before or after him in freestyle or the skills competition, that he was going to have to throw down if he wanted to make sure that he got those points over Tyler. And, for a lot of the times he was doing that. But, like you said, Tyler ended up winning the tour, but still Blake had such a great season.
Man, I think Blake Granger is definitely a future champion. He's been very dominant last year and especially showing this year. He has what it takes to be able to take the first place podium finish in the Arena Series. But Tyler Meninga really showed that he's the king of it all. And although he had some bad weekends, he was able to take it. But if Blake is able to have a season like he had this season for the next up-and-coming Monster Jam year, whenever that will be, I believe Blake will be able to take it. He's been an up-and-coming competitor for a while, and this season alone shows that he has the potential to take it.
Now we're moving into 2021. Obviously, a lot of uncertainty with what's happening with the points series, but assuming Blake Granger comes back, pilots Max D, and we have Monster Jam World Finals next year, do you guys think he can be a back-to-back world champion and the only world champion in the ATV racing competition so far?
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. It's not only just Blake who's also good in the ATVs. Blake's a very dominant, competitor in that competition, but you also got to look out for his wife, Kayla, and, a bunch of other athletes on the different triple threat tours. So, there's definitely that possibility, but, I never want to throw any other driver out of the equation for a world championship.
Yeah, Blake definitely has a really good shot at becoming the only ATV world champion. But, when you look at guys like Justin Hicks or Justin Sipes, like they're both very good at ATV competitions. And they were right there with Blake. And I believe they both competed at World Finals. And, Blake is very good at ATVs, and I can definitely see him getting that second world championship. But, like Josh said, like there are many other drivers out there like his wife that are really good, have really become really good at these ATVs.
I think that's a really cool factor that is in Monster Jam in the arenas now, ATVs and speedsters. And Blake is so good at ATVs, but like you said, Danny and Josh, he has a lot of competition. But if he has a season like he did before, as I said before, I think he'll be able to take it. He's been very dominant and he was very consistent, which is something you definitely have to do to be able to keep up with the arena points. And if he could be consistent, take it to World Finals if it happens, I think he could take the win.
Now moving on to Blake Granger's wife, Kayla Blood, in Soldier Fortune. Wayne, you said on the download a lot that they were lovey-dovey off the track, fierce rivals on the track. And that was no different this season when at one point both of them were the top two in the championship ahead of Tyler Meninga. And just what a breakout season for Kayla. I mean, I remember the forward momentum backflip off the 8-pack earlier this year being one of the wow moments of the entire year for Monster Jam. And that was from Kayla Blood. She did really well this season. What are you guys' opinions on Kayla Blood from the season?
I got nothing but good things to say. Kayla really opened my eyes, just even in her second year behind Soldier Fortune, she really opened up a lot of people's eyes last year and seeing what she could do. And Nashville proved it for her first weekend. I think she won, one overall, maybe two, if I'm not mistaken, depending on how many shows they had. But Kayla really did, open up a lot of eyes, and she competed with her husband. So it definitely showed that she had to, really up her game, because she's not only competing with her husband, but Tyler Meninga, who's now a 4th champion series championship tour. But regardless of what happens, Kayla just has to go out there with a clear head and do her thing.
Yeah, I mean, since Kayla started competing in Monster Jam, she's always been one that, would always give wow factors and would always be, in contention of getting anyone in any competition. But ever since she got into Soldier Fortune, I feel like, something clicked between her and that truck. And it just seemed like when she stepped in there, like she was getting overall championship after overall championship. And, this year was the same thing. She was getting a lot of wins. She was, she was right up top of the points at one point with Blake. And I mean, it just, and like you were saying with the forward momentum backflip that she did earlier in the season, she was like, the whole tour definitely had a lot of wow factors. Like that was one of their main things. And I think Kayla actually had a decent amount of those wow factors because of how much she's improved since she began and now that she's in Soldier Fortune.
Yeah, I think Kayla Blood was one of my underdog picks to take home a top 3 or even a win in the Arena series. She did so well, and I was really rooting for her. She really showed that she has true potential to be some type of championship in the future, the next female possibly to win a title. But she's been having such a great season. Sadly, it ended shortly. They were able to finish out their season, thankfully. But I think if she can continue on in the truck she's in, she'll definitely be able to take advantage, keep improving her skill level, and become an even better athlete, although she's already an amazing one. I think she's a future championship holder.
Now, I got to go back and review these top 3 for a second because, Josh, earlier this season, when we did the Monster Jam Download podcast, you kind of predicted what exactly happened in Kansas City. We'll play the audio clip right now before we get into it because, I mean, they have the majority of the wins. Tyler, of course, being the one with the most wins. He has the series points lead, but Kayla and Blake are so consistent up at the top that they have Tyler within striking distance.
Definitely. And that's one of the things, like I said, as the season progresses, things can change, and, next weekend, Tyler's truck can be flat out broke for 2 shows and only compete in like ATVs or speedsters. And then that way, Kayla or Blake can come back and lead. Armando can come back and get some points. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying with all these tours now that they're so even. You can't really get ahead in points and be comfortable if something were to go wrong.
Okay, so the viewers just heard the audio clip, and you basically said Tyler could have mechanical problems, miss 2 events, and he's outside of the points championship. That's pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah, 2020 has been a year, if I said so myself, not only just for everyone with, COVID and everything, but just for how everything really panned out in Monster Jam. From the beginning of the download thing that me, Wayne, and you did, really just showed that how the season can really pan out for a lot of drivers. We said, I think in one of the episodes, that was also going to be an Indy dominant season with how the lineups really panned out for the stadiums, and it turned out to be an Indy dominant season, in my opinion, for sure. You had to see a lot of different faces win overall event championships or freestyle championships for the first time. So it was definitely something cool. And the fact that, I was able to, say something like that and for it to happen definitely shows how Monster Jam can pan out, because there's definitely a lot of things that can happen, a lot of mistakes, and a lot of problems that can happen to these trucks. So if your truck is gone and you can't use it, you got to, make up the points in speedsters and ATVs, and that's what Tyler had to do. But, Kayla and Blake were able to, capitalize on that mistake and that mishap from Tyler's crew and his truck, and they got the lead from that.
And that definitely shows how hard the crews work and how difficult it really is to keep that points lead. One wrong move, and you could be dropping a couple spots. We move on to Armando Castro, finishing in 4th this season in El Toro Loco. I mean, Armando started in 2017, a couple years under his belt. Just another great improvement season from Armando.
Yeah, Armando, again, he's another one to look out for. He's been very consistent the last couple of seasons. We haven't really got to see much from him at World Finals. He competed in the 2-wheel skills championship last year, and he did really, really well. Very impressive in what he's done on a big floor, and I really like to see more out of him on a big floor. But for right now in the arenas, I think he's doing really well, and hope to see him with the championship.
Yeah, Armando Castro has been really good since he started his career in Monster Jam, and it just seemed like like he just only has been improving. He hasn't had an off season like we talk about with some drivers have had before. And he just always goes out there and he's winning overall championships. Everyone, at least with this year on Triple 30s, it seemed like everyone was talking about Tyler, Kayla, and Blake. But Armando, I believe, won 3 or 4 overall event championships in Allentown this year. So he was winning a lot of overall championships and freestyle wins, skills competition wins. And I just feel like he was one of the underdogs on the tour that could take out the entire competition of the night, and because of how consistent he is.
Yeah, I agree with Danny. I thought he was an underdog too. He's been very dominant with getting a couple of overalls and being very consistent every now and then. Sometimes you'll have some bad luck and some damage on the truck, which will stop you, but you have ATVs and speedsters. And Armando had a really solid year. 4th place is really good, especially for the 2020 season. And he's been improving throughout the years. He's only been driving for a couple of years, so I think he has the potential to do even better and to capitalize as an athlete. And in the future years, I think he'll be able to take a few more overalls and possibly be in the top 3.
Now, Armando last year competed on Triple Threat Series East. A lot of the same stops this year, but last year he was in contention for that championship with Tristan England and Blake Granger. He had Blake Granger here again, but Kayla, Blake, and Tyler were over him with Armando finishing in 4th. But still, I mean, it was such a difficult competition on that tour. I mean, Armando still had a great season, but it just shows you get a really difficult lineup, you're going to end up having to do a lot of work inside of that Monster Jam truck to make up those points.
Yeah, it shows for sure, because not only with Armando's case and him being on tour with Blake, Tyler, and Kayla, but it also shows that, with how Tony Oaks in the past seasons has been on tour with Tyler and Colton, if he gets pushed onto a new tour like how he did this season, you can shine out and do a lot of different things and make your own, name for yourself. And so there's definitely a lot of, things with, the tours of how, you're represented in the team you're on and whatnot. So you're going to have to make a name for yourself somehow. And doing that is one way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, Josh, like Triple Threat East was one of the most competitive tours, maybe of all time on Triple Threat. And, Armando had such a great season. He got so many overall wins, so many wins in general. But, only got him 4th. But, he was still, like you were saying, last year he was, he could have easily walked out with the championship of the entire tour. And it could have been the same thing for this year, but it goes to show how competitive that tour really was, to show that, the top 3, Tyler, Blake, and Kayla, were doing just as good as Armando some weekends, but because of all the points and how close it was, Armando couldn't get as many points as he wanted to, but he still definitely had such a great season on that really hard tour.
To expand on the thought, I remember talking about this on the Monster Jam download, that this tour was one of the most competitive tours, and for all the competition Armando had, he did such a great job, because Tyler, Kayla, Blake, and all of the other drivers really came with their A game this season. And for all of the arena stops they had, they all did amazing. I don't believe there are too many errors or miscommunications between the team and the driver. And it seemed like such a great season until everything happened. And I think if he gets into a different tour next year that has a little easier competition, he could be coming up there in the top ranks and even taking home a top 3 and maybe even 1st place. You never know.
A lot of the time in Monster Jam, improvement is better than that hardware that everybody wants, but improving year to year, it's that exponential improvement that everybody wants to see, from the Monster Jam fans to the drivers themselves. Moving on to Joe, Yuri, and Zombie. Talk about improvement. I mean, this was such a breakout season for Joe. His 2nd year, he's out of those rookie jitters. He's into now. We want to see that improvement, and we definitely saw it from Joe Yuri, in my opinion, especially in the Great Clips 2-Wheel Skills Challenge and the donut competition.
Yeah, easily. Joe's made a name for himself, not only in the 2-wheel skills competition, but in the donuts as well. Zombie's known for throwing really down some good donuts, with Bari as well being the donut world record holder. So it's very cool to see how Joe's really overcome that Zombie personality, and how he's really, folded into his own personality within Monster Jam. He's known for, going big and having some really cool moments in freestyle. And he's also known for having some really fast laps. He can win racing sometimes. So it is what it is, and Joe's an awesome competitor.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the ability to talk to Joe a couple times when the season was going on, and he's just like he's just full of energy about competing, and he's so excited to be going out there on the floor every weekend. And it showed with every time he'd go out there for skills or donuts, he'd be jumping right out of his truck, waving to the fans. Like he is so into this sport and all the fans. And this season, like with again how great this tour was and how consistent this tour was, he was another one where it seemed like he would go big, but maybe other guys would go bigger. But still, Joe, for only being in his second year of driving, he was going out winning competitions, almost getting overalls, winning an overall, I believe, at some point this season, and still just such a really great season on like we keep saying, on a tour that was like super competitive.
Yeah, Joe's definitely been improving, especially this year. He's been able to hold out moonwalks for much longer of a time, which is definitely a complicated task, especially for your first year. And as the fans like to call it, the handstand from the zombie. And donuts especially, I saw him this year. He was ripping them. He was doing an incredible job. And like you were saying, Danny and Josh, he's very interactive. He likes talking to his fans, and he's really outgoing. So to the fans, he really cares. He's a great driver. He's been improving. So in the coming years, he's definitely going to be someone to watch out for. And right now, he already is.
And Joe Yuri, obviously, we expect from him to have many more years behind the wheel of a Monster Jam truck going into next season. Do you see more improvement from Joe Yuri? Do you see maybe he could be rivaling for a championship there in the top 3?
There's definitely a fire that is within him burning, so I'm pretty sure he's going to want to let out a lot of anger and frustration out on a Monster Jam truck. With COVID, really downpouring on their season continuing, he hasn't really had much of an opportunity to drive afterwards, as well as everyone else, obviously. But, with how tours lineups really are made up, Joe really hasn't had that many, shows after quarter 1 anyway. So it really been cool to see what he could do outside of quarter 1 shows. Maybe some stadium shows would be interesting to see what he could do, but it's definitely awesome to see what Joe's done behind the wheel the last couple seasons, and I can't wait to see what he can do in the future.
Yeah, I mean, after his last 2 seasons and how great he was, even in his rookie season, he was super impressive. And then this season, obviously, he was very impressive. I think that going in the next season, if he's on a tour, that I think he does have a shot at winning the whole entire tour, just because he has that momentum for freestyle. He has the skill for the skills competition, and he's great at donuts. I forget who said it, but he's been great at racing, and he's also very competitive in the ATVs and speedsters. So if he can keep that consistency going, I think he has a really good shot at winning a tour, either next season or a future season in the future.
I agree with Josh and Danny. I think he's definitely someone who could take a top 3 or even a championship in the coming years. We saw a lot of improvement this season, as we've been talking about. And with time to come, Joe's going to just get better and better. And hopefully, if he's staying in Zombie, you never know if he'll be in the same truck or a different one, which will make him even more competitive possibly. But it all depends on the lineup you get. Depending on the competition he's going to get in the tour he gets, he could try and take the series win. But if you have Tyler Meninga and some of the other people, it's going to be hard to take that series championship. So we'll have to see what happens in the coming season.
We move on to another improving driver this season, Alien Invasion's Bernard Lights, who earned his 3rd ever overall event championship this season in Washington, D.C. in the Sunday afternoon event. And just what a season for Bernard Light. Obviously, finishing 6th in points. No competitive driver wants to finish 6th in points, but another season where Bernard Light is showing that improvement and showing that he wants to be here. And then I remember back in Tampa last season, last fall, I was with my good friend Monster Jam Geek. We were in the pit party line for Bernard Light. We got up there, and Bernard, after taking the picture with Nick, was asking him to give him feedback on his events that day because he was such a super fan and he wanted to improve. I mean, that just shows an athlete that is willing to be in this for the long haul and say, hey, no matter how long it takes, I'm here to win and I'm here to improve.
Oh yeah, it's for sure shown in Bernard for sure. No matter what position he finishes in a tour, he's got a biggest smile in the room to light up the entire room, in my opinion. Bernard's an awesome dude. And I want to see him do really well and win a tour eventually. But I feel like for now, him, building himself up behind the wheel and him, really, forming into one as a driver with the amount of talent that has involved in Triple Threat East from the get-go in Birmingham. Tyler and Blake were already fighting for the points leadership. So from then on, you have to really figure out what you want to do as for the season and really plan it out. And Bernard picking up a couple overall event championships has shown that no matter where you finish, you can also win.
Yeah, Josh, you were saying that Bernard was asking for feedback from Monster Jam Geek, and Wilkes-Barre, I was talking to him, and he was asking me from the previous night, how he did in the skills competition, how he did in freestyle, and he just wants honest answers. He wants to know from a fan's perspective, how he's doing on the floor, and if he's entertaining, and he definitely is. There's no doubt about it. He's always going out there. He's going big, and it just shows that the fact that he's asking, Monster Jam Geek, myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people, that he wants to improve, he wants to keep driving, and he's very passionate about what he's doing. For the season, I think, he was one of those underdog drivers because, he was able to grab a couple overall event championships, you were saying, in Washington, D.C., and I believe he got one in Allentown as well towards the end of the weekend. And, he's always just improved every single year that he's been driving. And this year was just one of those years again where he was becoming even better of a driver, better of an athlete. And, even though he did finish in sixth in points, he still had a really great season on a competitive tour like that.
Josh, Bernard's an awesome guy, and I agree with Josh and Danny. He's been wanting input from all of the community and fans after Amalie Arena's show that me and Nick were able to go to. We went to the post meet and greet, and he actually asked us what we thought about his driving, what he can improve. And I think that's so cool as a driver because not many people outreach to the fans or the super fans to see what they can improve in and stuff. And Bernard really wants the input and the feedback in order to do better and do this for many years. And he's also very competitive. Although he got sixth, he had some of the toughest competition of the whole arena tours. If he didn't have Tyler Meninga, Blake, Kayla, and all of them, he probably would have had a top 5 or a top 3. But you just have a lot of competition. So in the upcoming years, I definitely think he's a top 3 or top 5 athlete and could get a championship.
Now, Bernard Light has also really taken to this Alien Invasion brand. I mean, it started with Chad Tingler back in 2016, and quickly Bernard Light was in that truck in 2017 and is now the only driver on a points tour behind the wheel of Alien Invasion. And Joe Yuri and Zombie on his tour has the Zombie Arm Wave. We saw Bernard Light start the Alien Wave with all the fans in attendance at the Triple Threat Series East events. I mean, it just goes to show, again, he's improving on the track, but he's also really forwarding the brand of Alien Invasion that he has really taken on in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like Bernard as a personality is definitely someone to really, I guess, idolize, because Bernard is just one guy that you really can't, hate. He's really just an awesome dude. I just nothing but smiles when I'm around the dude. He's a great guy, and I can't say anything bad about him. And, in a tour like this, stacked with so many big and well-known drivers, if you really can't do well in the points championship, you got to do something to, at least keep the fans interested and, keep the fans really wanting to know what's about with Bernard Light. So Alien Invasion, he has the Alien Arm Wave. So let's see what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying that he's like so great with the fans, and before every event during the pre-show interviews, he'd go out on the floor, go up to the pod and do a flip or do a bunch of cartwheels. Like he's all about the fans, getting the fans excited before the event, and with the Alien Wave and everything, had the entire arenas doing it with him, and like Josh was saying, like if you have really tough competition like you did this year, and that you're not going to be able to really gain a ton of points, especially towards when you get towards the end of the season. Like you want the fans to remember you, and he did that on the floor in his truck, and he did that with getting out of his truck, waving to the fans, doing the flips. And, I think that's something that makes Bernard different from everyone else.
Josh Bernard is a hype man. He knows how to hype up the crowd, and he came from Marvel Universe Live, I believe, and that gave him a lot of different skills and all types of stuff. So when he comes to these shows, he's not only a skills competition person that he's really good at, he goes onto the arena pad and gives the fans some awesome moves, which they definitely go home and talk about after. And he's an awesome guy. He likes the fans. He goes up and is very interactive with them. And that's what you got to be as a driver. You're hired to please the fans, put a smile on everyone's face, and leave an impact. And Bernard definitely does that.
Moving on to Aaron Basil in Monster Mutt, back on the Triple Threat Series after a couple years off. He last competed on it in 2017 behind the wheel of Rottweiler, now behind the wheel of the regular Monster Mutt. And with a couple years off, he did really well in a new chassis as well for Raising Cane Monster Trucks. And it's an overall good season from Aaron Basil.
Yeah, a couple years out of the Triple Threat Series for Aaron, coming back, he already knows what to expect in the Triple Threat Series. But, going into the season, I'm pretty sure he already knew that he didn't want to destroy the truck every show for the, every weekend that he does. So I'm pretty sure he wanted to have like some sort of a game plan to really, get points, stay consistent, but not break stuff. And, he really capitalized in racing, and he's always a good wheelier in the two-wheel skill. So him doing the really classic wheelies have definitely helped him capitalize on points.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, Aaron Basil kind of surprised me this season. I was able to see him compete 9 different times over the course of 2 weeks in Wilkes-Barre and Allentown. And, he was actually sent out last in freestyle. I believe it was in Wilkes-Barre, one of the shows. And, he went out there and he was airing it out like he was, one of the top guys in the point standings. And he was, I believe that same weekend he got a speedster competition win or 2. He was beating Tyler Meninga in the final round. And, he was actually really, really impressive for a couple of these events that, I feel like people kind of overlooked, which, I feel like he was just one of those wild cards like Armando Castro where, either he's going to go out there, be extremely consistent, just fill the clock, get his runs in, or he's going to go out there and, put down a really great run in freestyle or the skills competition and even beat out some of the top guys in, this Beaster competition. So he really did have a good season.
I believe he had a solid season after not being in the Arena Series for a couple of years. His top competition was definitely racing, who is a solid racer this year. And I'm looking forward to see him in the future, maybe for another few years. We'll see what he can do. But he's definitely someone who could improve and be an up-and-coming person if he can master a moonwalk or the crazy hits that people like Tyler Meninga and Blake Granger and all of them do nowadays. So if he can master those and become even better at racing, I think he has a good chance of being a top 5 competitor.
And we do wish Aaron and Darren Basil the best after they just acquired the Devastator truck from Mark Schrader, and they'll be adding a new truck to that team as well. So good luck to the Basil brothers. We're hoping to see them back in Monster Jam next season behind the wheel of Devastator and the brand new truck that they'll be unveiling soon. Final athlete on Triple Threat Series East was Jack Brown in Megalodon. 3rd season competing in Monster Jam, and a good season from him. Solid events that he's had. No overall event championships. Well, obviously 8th in the points, not where any competitive athlete wants to be, but it's that improvement that counts, and maybe some mechanical issues here and there for Jack Brown just kind of plagued his season.
Yeah, coming into this season, Jack Brown really had to get used to the new chassis that him and Team Raising Cane have built. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of kinks still to be worked out with that truck because, he pretty much didn't have that much time to really test the truck and really digest and understand what's wrong with it or what is good with it. And, he had to really just learn on the fly as the tour really progressed. And Jack has really come into one behind the wheel, and he's really learned on the fly with the help of Tyler and Blake on his tour. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be one to look out for in the next couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying for the last 30, 40 minutes of this episode is that this tour was so incredibly competitive that to the point where, amazing drivers like Armando Castro, Joe Yuri, and, and Jack Brown were almost like forgotten, it seemed like. And even though Jack Brown had a great season, he's always been extremely consistent. Like, he never really wants to, go out there destroy the truck if he doesn't need to. He's always been great in racing, great in even freestyle, and I believe he's very great in speedsters as well. I feel like it was just a very solid season, and like, he's definitely improved over the last 3 years that he's competed in, and he's been competing next to Tyler Meninga for 2 of those seasons. So competing next to Tyler is definitely not an easy thing to do. But I feel like Jack Brown, even though he did end up finishing 8th in the point series, that he still really had a good season.
I think Jack Brown has nothing to be ashamed of coming in 8th place. He had a good season. He had brand new equipment, and he was just getting started and getting used to it. So, like you guys said, he didn't have too much time to practice probably, and you have to dial in your equipment or else it's not going to work how you want it to. I know Jack's an awesome guy. I got to meet him back starting in 2018 at Amalie Arena, and he just came and walked up to the stands and said hi, which I never expect, because going to the big stadiums, usually the drivers don't come into the stands and say hello, but it was really cool. I got a picture, and I just saw him last Saturday, and he did pretty good at the independent show he was at. So he definitely has that truck more dialed in now, and I think he'll be doing great coming into the next season.
Well, guys, final thoughts on Triple Threat Series East as we wrap up this episode. The only points series that finished all of its scheduled stops, and it was competitive from the beginning in Birmingham to the end in Raleigh, North Carolina. Final thoughts on this season on Triple Threat Series East. What an amazing season, and in my personal opinion, the best tour that we've had all season long.
Definitely my favorite tour. There's a lot of moments on that tour, from Kayla's mini flip, 4 momentum mini flip that is, to Tyler's, backflip to reverse sidewall. There's a lot of things there, from Blake, Kayla, Armando, everyone. That tour was just stacked. It was a rat race from the beginning to the end. And hopefully that kind of tour comes back to us in the future, because that was a very competitive tour, and that's what we as fans love.
Yeah, I mean, the tour, like Josh said, was definitely my favorite tour of the entire season. I might have a little bias towards it just because I saw it 2 weeks back to back for 9 total shows. But I mean, even with taking those shows out, like it seemed like every weekend they were bringing something new to the table, and they were just super entertaining to watch and super competitive, like we've been saying this entire episode. So like Josh said, I hope that a tour like this comes back where we don't really know where the points are going to go, because everyone is so great on this tour. But at the same time, I almost hope that, drivers like Joe Yuri, Armando Castro, Bernard Light, Aaron, Basil, and Jack Brown get, on a tour where they have a really great shot at winning the overall tour. And, because, we all love Tyler Meninga and everything, but, like, it would be really great to see, Armando or Joe come up and, take a tour, get close to winning a tour. But overall, the tour was definitely one of my favorites this year.
I thought this series was amazing. This had the best competition on it. It was very diverse. I believe the other tours were more diverse, but whoever put together the lineups this year, they really put a lot of thought into it, and they did a great job. I enjoyed everything that happened this year. We had a lot of amazing wow moments. The competition was awesome. The athletes were at their A game the whole time, and especially seeing the mini flip as like a main ramp now, it was amazing. All the fans who got to see it in real life, they got a heck of a show. It was awesome, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you all for tuning in to the next episode of the Monster Jam Teardown. Tune in next week, as on the next tour that we'll be reviewing from this season of Monster Jam is Stadium Championship Series Green, with a special bonus interview with Monster Jam host, pit reporter on that tour, Casey G. From Danny, Wayne, Josh, I am Joshua Lee. Thank you for tuning in, and have a happy Thanksgiving.